Hey everyone, Victor is here, your organic chemistry tutor, and in this video I want to talk about the decarboxylation of carboxylic acids. So generally speaking, whenever we are talking about the decarboxylation, we are going to be looking at some sort of a carboxylic acid, and we are going to be losing this carboxylic acid functional group in the form of the CO2 gas. And an important thing to remember here is that during this reaction we are going to be losing the carbon. So the carbon that used to be a carbon of our carboxylic acid is going to be lost in the form of this CO2. There are several different types of the decarboxylation reaction that you can encounter in your class. The first one is going to be the ionic decarboxylation, which is going to be the most common case. And it is also going to be the focus of this video today. But you might also see the radical decarboxylation, which is typically done electrochemically or at extremely high temperatures, or sometimes you might encounter decarboxylations that are assisted by heavy metals, either transitional metals like copper or lead, or sometimes S elements like barium. However, those are also done typically at a very high temperature and are not particularly useful for the synthetic purposes. So today I specifically want to focus on the ionic decarboxylations, which can occur either in acidic conditions, or occasionally we can see decarboxylation happening in basic conditions. So let's start by looking at the decarboxylation in the basic conditions first. If we take some sort of a carboxylic acid, let's say I have some sort of a generic carboxylic acid over here, and I treat that carboxylic acid with some sort of a base, naturally the first reaction that's going to occur here is going to be a simple acid-base reaction where the base is going to come in and pull that proton off our carboxylic acid, giving us the corresponding carboxylate ion. Now, from this point, what can happen is that the CO2 can essentially just pop off, giving us whatever that R group is with a negative charge, and also we're going to produce CO2 here, which hopefully flies away. Now, the trick here for reactions like that in basic conditions is that this R- should be able to stabilize the negative charge. So just a regular carbon chain ain't gonna work here. We need something that should be able to stabilize that negative charge, typically via resonance. So most likely we are going to see examples with enolate ions as a result, or something very similar to them structurally. So for instance, if I were to take this acetoacetic acid over here, or 3-oxobutanoic acid if you like the IUPAC name, and we treat that with a base, let's say I will choose something simple like sodium hydroxide, then this sodium hydroxide can come in and deprotonate my carboxylic acid, giving me the corresponding carboxylate. Now, this carboxylate can lose our CO2 like so, giving us the enolate anion plus CO2 gas. Now, unfortunately, this reaction is not particularly useful because there are quite a few problems with that. First of all, CO2 is going to react with sodium hydroxide in our solution, forming sodium carbonate and water, which means that we are going to have a huge excess of our sodium hydroxide. Otherwise, CO2 will just eat up our sodium hydroxide and reaction will stop. Another problem that we are going to be facing here is the fact that we have a carbonyl in our molecule, meaning that the hydroxide can react with the carbonyl, making essentially it impossible for the reaction to proceed. And on top of that, if that wasn't bad enough, the enolate that we are forming here is quite nucleophilic, so it can also cause side reactions that we don't really want to see here either. So overall, decarboxylations in basic conditions are not going to be particularly useful, simply because all the side processes and side reactions that we are going to see here going to counter all of our efforts, and you're going to most likely end up with a soup of side products and unwanted processes that you're going to be seeing. Although this type of decarboxylation has been well documented, and there are quite a few papers out there that do describe this decarboxylation. What we are going to see more commonly, though, is decarboxylation in acidic conditions. Most commonly, we are going to be seeing this type of a reaction for the beta-ketocarboxylic acids. So if I have my carboxylic acid functional group over here, in the beta position to that, we have a keto group. It can be a simple carbonyl like an aldehyde or a ketone, or it could actually be another carboxylic acid. For as long as we have a CO double bond in the beta position over here, we can do this reaction. Upon very mild heat, we are going to first form our intermediate here, which is going to be a corresponding enol, a compound in which you have a double bond right next to the OH group, which will then undergo the keto-enol tautomerism and give us the corresponding carbonyl. Whether it's going to be a ketone, aldehyde, or another carboxylic acid will depend on the nature of this R group that we have over here. So, for example, if I start with the same acetoacetic acid that I used as an example for my basic conditions, here, for the acidic conditions, I don't really have to do any reaction per se to begin with. But in order to make my life a little bit easier here, I am going to redraw this molecule, essentially rotating around the single bond and making sure that my OH group is closer to this oxygen over here. And I will show in a moment here why that is relevant. Because now, when I have my molecule looking like this, it's going to be really easy to show the mechanism. This goes here, and that goes there. So essentially, I'm going to end up making a bond between this hydrogen and oxygen, getting rid of the CO double bond and leaving just with the single carbon-oxygen bond, making a bond between these carbons, breaking this bond and making a bond over here. Or in other words, I'm getting my enol and CO2. And to make it a little bit easier to track where the new bonds are, I am also highlighting them here in green. Now, as I've mentioned, the enol here is going to be an intermediate. That is not our final product. Enols are intrinsically unstable, so what we're going to see here is the keto-enol tautomerization to give us a more thermodynamically stable carbonyl. In this case, it's going to be a ketone. I do have a dedicated tutorial on the keto-enol tautomerism, so if you need a refresher, you might want to check that one out as well, but I will still show the mechanism here nonetheless. So, since this reaction is done in the acidic conditions, we are going to have trace acid present around. And in order to do our first step of the keto-enol tautomerism, we are going to show the electron density cascade starting all the way from our oxygen and grabbing the proton from our acid, adding our proton to this atom over here at the end of our double bond, which going to result in the protonated carbonyl, which we're going to deprotonate, essentially returning our acid catalyst back into the reaction system, making our final product, which in this particular case is going to be acetone. A benefit of this reaction is that it only requires a very mild heat, and by mild heat I mean temperatures somewhere between 50 and maybe 150 degrees centigrade, which is definitely nothing to be afraid of. And depending on the nature of our carboxylic acid, sometimes this reaction even happens spontaneously at the room temperature, which means that you have to be extremely mindful when working with your carboxylic acids and showing them for different synthetic pathways, because if you have something that looks like that, chances are these compounds are not going to be particularly stable and they're going to undergo spontaneous decarboxylation. So when it comes to the stability of our carboxylic acids, if we have just a regular carboxylic acid where your carboxylic acid functional group is just attached to a regular chain that cannot support or stabilize the negative charge in any way or form, those regular carboxylic acids are perfectly stable. However, as soon as you have something that can stabilize the negative charge over here on this alpha position, something like, let's say, a carbonyl in the beta position, these guys are no longer stable and will undergo decarboxylation at higher temperatures. And if you have something that can stabilize the negative charge very well, like let's say a halogen for instance, those compounds are going to be unstable even at room temperature or sometimes even at low temperatures. So if you draw something like that in your synthesis as a starting material or one of the reagents, that is going to be an immediate huge no, because that is not a stable compound. You cannot have it sitting in the flask. It just doesn't exist at room temperature. It will immediately decompose. Molecules like this, where you have a carbonyl in the beta position, these guys are semi-stable and they're going to decompose at the elevated temperatures, so you shouldn't be using them as a starting point or as a reagent in your synthesis. And of course, regular carboxylic acids are perfectly stable, so you can use them however you like. And so because the beta-ketocarboxylic acids, like this example that I have in the middle over here, are unstable, typically we are going to see those guys as the intermediates in different synthetic schemes rather than final products. So for instance, let's say we're going to start with a molecule that looks like that, and we are going to treat it with sodium hydroxide followed by the neutralization or acidic workup. Well, in this case, the outcome of my first step is going to be a basic hydrolysis of an ester, which is essentially just a simple acyl substitution reaction. Then, as soon as we treat that dicarboxylate with acid, we are going to protonate that molecule, and at that point we are going to proceed with the decarboxylation. To show the mechanism for that step, I'm going to first redraw my molecule, then I will show my curved arrows. This goes here, this goes here, that goes there, giving us the corresponding enol and of course CO2, which is going to fly away. And from this point, like in the previous case, we are going to protonate our enol like so, giving us a protonated intermediate, which is going to quickly lose proton to water or whatever else we have floating in our surroundings, giving us our final product, cyclopentane carboxylic acid in this particular case. Now, while it is important to know the mechanism for the reaction whenever you are dealing with anything in organic chemistry, there is a very simple trick that you can use here to quickly visualize your final product. The thing is, as soon as you get to the point where you have your carboxylic acid, I'm going to circle it like that, next to a carbonyl. In this case, we have our carbonyl that is a part of another carboxylic acid functional group. So what you're going to do here, we're just going to take our carboxylic acid and we're just going to erase that functional group. And that gives you your final product right away without having to go through all the mechanistic steps. Of course, for the exam purposes, it is still a very good idea to know those mechanistic steps, but as I said, if you need to quickly predict the structure of your final product, just get your carboxylic acid functional group and just erase that as if it is not even there. So, for instance, if I have this molecule over here and I perform the same sequence of steps, then in this case, I don't have to go through the entire mechanism. Unlike in the previous example here, I only have one ester functional group, so it is that ester that's going to be converted eventually into the carboxylic acid. So what I'm going to do here, I will redraw my starting material, but instead of that ester, I will have my carboxylic acid. So I will show that structure looking like this. So I have my OH over here, and then the rest of the molecule just like that. Now, this carboxylic acid that I have right over here on the right side, we have it right next to a carbonyl. I will highlight that part in orange, which means that we can undergo decarboxylation. So what I'm going to do, I'll just make a copy of this molecule, a little bit of magic, and boom, I have a copy of this molecule. I will grab my eraser and I will just carefully erase this carboxylic acid functional group as it has never been there. And now, if I carefully redraw my molecule in a slightly better way, I will get my final product looking like this. Easy peasy. So here, I could quite easily predict the structure of my final product without going through the ordeal of writing every single mechanistic step. A decarboxylation like this can easily sneak up on you on the exam, so always be vigilant and remember that beta-ketocarboxylic acids are unstable and do tend to decompose, especially if your instructor indicates that we have higher temperature for our workup step. That heat there is for a reason, and that reason is to catch you on this reaction on the exam, so be very careful, so you don't lose those points. And as always, thank you for watching. If you learned something new today, hit that like button, check out this video next, and I will see you next time.